a.m. today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass podcast. Well, today we have Chris, the angry American from the Going Home series, or is it the Home
Yeah.
series? How do you call the series?
Penguin technically calls it the Survivalist series, a name which I
Okay.
didn't want it to have, but everybody else just refers to it as either the Home series or a Going Home series. So you kind of nailed
Right.
both of them. So
All right, there you go. That's kind of the way I've always,
yeah,
seen
that's
it.
how I look at it too.
I would say, I was an early adapter with checking them out. I mean, I think at least by the second book, I was, I had discovered, by the second release
Yeah.
there, and been following it. And as they come out now, I don't think I've caught every one along the way,
Yeah, there's a
but
bunch of them.
but a bunch of them. Now, like first, let's touch on the books, and then I think we'll kind of jump all over here, and we got a lot going on in the world. We'll figure
I
it
was gonna
all
say
out.
that there's not much happening, but we'll find some things to talk about.
Right. It's got to be something, right? So what's the premise of the whole book series? Like what is the whole for the listener? I mean, I know, but
yeah,
yeah.
but so when I wrote Going Home actually on one of the survivalist forums online.
Okay.
I worked on the road at the time, so I spent a lot of time in hotels, and I didn't like to hang out at bars or nothing. So I would sit in a hotel, and I just started writing this story just for my own entertainment. And when I started that, it would have been 2010, I guess it was. And the only things out there really was Patriots and 1 Second After. You had to go way
Right.
back to like the 70s and William Johnstone and that kind of stuff to get, books of the genre.
Right.
And so I decided I would make mine on the MP2 just because I wanted to make the world as bad as I could, as quickly and easily as I could.
Yeah.
And so the main character is a guy named Morgan Carter, and he's 250 miles from home in the state of Florida. And when the EMP occurs, and the entire first book is just him trying to get home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I was intending to write, was that story of this guy just trying to make his way home. And he's a prepper. I'm not gonna say mild prepper. He's a prepper. He had a ruck in his truck, and he had a pistol with him, and so he had some stuff. But like a lot of folks, he had stuff he didn't need. He needed things he didn't have, and has to deal with all that.
Right.
And that was just my intention, was to write that story. But but it took on a life of its own online. It had over 2 million views online, and people demanding that I publish it.
Right.
And so I was like, well, look, I'm not going to publish it, but I'll write you guys another one. So then I wrote the sequel, Surviving Home, on the forum.
Okay.
And that just kind of picked up. But because the getting home that's just the smallest part of the story. It was this guy's trip home, walking 250 miles.
Right.
And then there's what happens after that. He has a wife and kids, and he lives in a community, and what does that look like after that, after something like that occurs? And so I kind of just extrapolated that out. And we're still running with it. Actually, I had no intention of it being a series or running like it is, but the people that read this, there are so many people that are so invested in it. Like,
Yeah.
there was a spell 4 years where I didn't get a book out because a whole bunch of stuff was going on in my life. Like, my dad passed away, and my mom had been very ill and was in and out of the hospital, and it was just a bad time.
Right.
Yeah. So life occurred. But during that 4 years, I would get so many messages like, man, when's the next book coming? I'm worried about my friends. Like,
Nice.
that's what people would say.
Awesome.
And I get a lot of messages like that. And people will ask me, and I get asked a lot, how many books are there going to be? How many books are there going to be? And my standard reply was always, I will write them as long as I enjoy writing them and you guys enjoy reading them. When one of those two things fail, we're going to stop. But I've decided here lately, I think I'm going to stop it at 20 books. So number 12 just published.
Still. All right.
Yes. Yeah. So there's still 8 more books to do. What the heck? Hang on. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Felt like something was stabbing me in the head. So yeah, I've still got 8 more books to do. I'm working on 13 as well as some other works. I've got multiple books in the works right now. Actually, 4. President. Sorry about that. Where is that?
You're good.
I didn't know that thing was on.
You're all good.
Yes. I mean, that's Ma. Let me just shoot Mom a text. You gotta answer Mom when she's looking for you.
That's the
Um,
go-to. That's why the big alarm,
yeah,
because you know it's urgent and important.
yeah. All
Oh,
right. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that was the whole premise of it. And I've been in the survival space. I mean, for at that point, a couple of decades. I
wow.
started off in
Yeah.
my teenage years with primitive skills. Breaking
Nice.
rocks
Yeah.
together and doing all those things,
Yep.
and that just kind of slowly progressed into what I like to refer to as modern survival, trying to use the tools that we have um, but learning the skills because sometimes we don't have tools no matter how well we plan and prepare. We
Right.
might find ourselves without them. So the knowledge is a big thing, and I'm always stressing to people to go out and get training. I don't care who you get training from as long as they know what the hell they're doing,
Yeah.
but go take a training class. I don't care if it's a survival class, a first aid class, a firearms class, or whatever class. Go take some training, get some
Yep.
expert instruction. So I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah. You always feel so much more like fulfilled when you do training. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I find it like so energizing, or whatever. I'll go out. I went to I work with some guys. Actually, some of the guys with that movie that just came out, that Sound of Freedom, and I was working
Oh
with
yeah.
some of those guys. Oh man, it must have been about 9 or 10 years ago, and
hmm
and they were like, "Oh yeah, we do this training, and before we want you to go do anything, you got to come, hang out, and we do a big
Yeah.
training thing for a week and whatever." And I went
Oh, yeah.
down to Texas, and just being around other guys who are all the same thing,
Yep.
and have that same mindset, and out there, it definitely builds you up. It's a disturbing world we live in.
I don't know if you recognize that goon. That's my brother Alan Kay right there.
Nice.
And if when you talk survival, that's your
He's the
guru right
go-to.
there. Oh my
Nice.
God, yeah. You could drop him naked into anything, and he's going to come out the other side in a
Nice.
suit and have all kinds of stuff. So I don't know what the suit will be made of, but he'll have one.
He'll have one, huh? Nice.
But yeah, it's yeah. He's an instructor too. He and I became very good friends through the same thing. We met through this whole survival skill thing. I don't like to use the term prepper per se, especially because it's been turned into such a negative thing these days. I
Yeah,
prefer the term survivalist myself because a prepper means you're getting ready. Yes, you're getting ready. Survivalist, that means you intend to survive it. I tend to
like
live
it.
through it.
I like
So
it.
I stick with the old terms. From the '90s, back in the days when survivalist was it was a bad thing, but I was neck deep in it then too. So
Yeah, I was a late adapter, I think. I not that late. I did the Boy Scouts thing and
yeah,
all that, and was big into that. So you learn the basics of life, kind of thing. I think that every young adult should learn,
oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
join the Navy, whatever. And actually, I was in when we were over bombing Kosovo and former
hmm
Yugoslavia there doing
Oh yeah,
that,
yeah. Balkans, yeah.
and yeah, watching all that, watching everybody's world change kind of really
Yeah,
changed my view and how
yeah.
defenseless the people were kind of against really their government, and
hmm
seeing how that can happen. And I know we've all been insulated in America with, oh, well, nothing bad's ever happened in anybody's memory that, they recall here anymore. And, people
Yep.
don't have that mindset. And, obviously things can change on a dime. So it's definitely so
Yes. Just
somewhere
ask
along the
Israel.
way.
Just ask Israel how fast things can change.
Yeah. Well, they
So
always seem to be seeing it. So
well, and talking about again defenseless. Israelis. Most of them don't have weapons. The
yeah.
kibbutzes had small security detachments that were armed, but that was it. And
Yeah.
and we saw what happened. And when people said, "But this is America, nothing like that would ever happen here."
Right.
Well, I don't know. We've had a few million invaders here over the recent years
We have.
that are currently in this country that do not have our best interests at heart. So it could happen. We could very well wake up one morning to mass chaos around this country, and it doesn't take that many. Now again, remember there are millions of them, but imagine 10 to 20 actors that all go, kinetic on the same day in
Yeah.
a coordinated manner around this country, and we have 10 to 20 simultaneous events occurring in this country, and what it would do to it. Even
Yeah.
if the casualty counts aren't that high, just the fact that that many things occurred, spread across the country like that, it would paralyze this nation. It would bring us to our knees, and which of course would lead immediately to martial law, and then we don't know exactly what that would look like. But yes, it absolutely can happen. So yes, you need to be thinking along those lines every day, in my opinion. So
No, I think you're right on. It's funny. I was watching a video last night on the whole Stuxnet virus.
Oh, yeah.
The CIA, the one, it was the one I guess that took out Iran there. That
took out their
with their
centrifuges.
yeah,
Yep.
right. And and they were like, oh yeah, it's Siemens PLC stuff that it really focused on and disrupted with them. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I work with that every day. I mean, most of the stuff I do is Allen Bradley, but Siemens is everywhere and whatever. And it really, if you disrupted that and, we gave it out to the world, we had our best and brightest create it and said, yeah, here you go. And now anybody can, with a little effort, go secure these things. And
well, and they're finding, and so you're an electrician, and that's my background as well. Granted, I haven't pulled any wire in a very long time, but
that's a good thing.
It's a wonderful thing. I loved the job when I did it. I was really good at it too. I took my job serious. I was a professional. But they're finding backdoor Chinese code in variable frequency drives, PLCs. So for people that don't know, a variable frequency drive or a VFD controls motors, how fast they'll turn. So pumping water, creating electricity, doing things like that. And then PLCs, programmable logic controllers, are what control the frequency drives. And they're finding Chinese code in these things. All of it has backdoors, and none of it is hardened at all, not to any degree whatsoever.
Yeah.
So,
well, that security is so lax. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
No, I'm just saying your security is lax, and we are the biggest sitting duck on the planet because so many people hate us, and especially presently, the operation over there in the Gulf just fell apart. Where we put together a coalition, what they call Operation Guardian or something. I can't remember the name now, but it was to protect commercial shipping from the Houthis, and all the nations told us to pound sand. They're like, we're not going to participate in this if you guys are running it, because this is a shit show. So what does that say? Think about that. The United States Navy, the rest of the modern navies of the world said, we're not working with these clowns anymore. We are a laughing stock on the world stage. There was a time where the U.S. Navy instilled fear in our adversaries, and they trembled at the thought of a carrier battle group showing up.
All day.
Not anymore. We can't even intimidate the Houthis, man. We can't even intimidate the Houthis. So
and I think part of it is, it used to be like, I think even if you took our amazing battle group with the amazing guys we had in we'll say the 90s, whenever people were, whatever you think of as the height of American, excellence, the whole playing field has changed so much that a battle group doesn't even matter so much anymore, because we can destroy a country so many other ways, so much easier with a laptop, with, even EMPs. And still, all these things are now on the table that we really can't defend against.
And we're currently watching the second army of the world, Russia, be brought to their knees by Mavic drones. Like,
that's what they said. They were, I was watching this stuff, and they were like, they try and move artillery into position, and then the drones figure out where they are, and it's completely useless. And
they're taking a Mavic drone and strapping an RPG-7 to the bottom of it and flying it into a T-90 tank and destroying it. It's costing them $500 to take out a $4 million piece of combat hardware.
Nothing. And that has to be, but what scares me is I don't think it is a wake-up call to the mainstream of the military, like the upper echelon. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of generals and guys that are really worried about it, but I really feel like the powers that be kind of have no idea what's going on. And go ahead. You look like you died to say something.
I disagree with you. I think they
Okay.
know exactly what's going on, and I think that they are intentionally gutting our military.
Okay, then
I
I
believe it's
can
intentional.
accept that. I
Yeah.
can accept that. That was actually one of the points I was gonna make. You know, you mentioned that there's so many bad actors out there right now that hate us, but
Hmm.
I think we're also at the height of our country hating ourselves. Like,
Oh, yes.
internally, we have so
Yes.
many people that, exactly what you're saying, where we're intentionally allowing, you know, uh,
Yeah.
uh, our country to fall apart, our country to be taken advantage of.
We're not even in, well, yes, but it's worse than we're intentionally allowing it. Our administration is actively engaged in making it happen.
Yes,
So you
yes,
go south of the border, there are maps that get handed out to all of them, telling them each stop what services
we're
are
running
available to them. And
commercials, right?
there's apps now that they can get, and they show up here, they cross the fence, they get a cell phone, they get a debit card, like a
It's
prepaid
crazy.
card with cash on it, and a plane ticket, bus ride to where the hell ever. And they're taking these people and sending them to places that are predominantly conservative
Right.
to water down the voting base, and then
Nope.
they're trying to allow these people to vote as well.
Right.
California's letting them, which
Yeah.
which is the height of absurdity. And many Democrats have said it publicly that, new voter base. That's
Right.
what we're doing. So they're not even lying to us about it. They're not trying to hide it. They're just telling us, we got to replace you people and get people that will do the things we want done.
Right. That will just
So
do what they're told. Right.
yeah.
And then, I mean, hell, you could talk about, going on to destroying our country with our agriculture laws, the way we're changing things there, that whole
Well,
thing with trying to kill the small farmer kind of thing, business thing there,
yeah.
making everybody kind of dependent on the whole. I mean, hell, it goes back to, ethanol, and I'm sure before that, but,
Oh yeah.
with the
Yeah.
subsidizing the corn, and just the
Hmm.
way we do things is just so ass
Well,
backwards and
you look at
insane.
Europe, because we're probably a decade roughly ish behind like where Europe's at. And so you look at like Denmark over
Mm.
there, where they're shutting farms down. They're just
Right.
coming in and telling farm, you're done. You're not farming no more. You are done. We've got to reduce the CO2. And so, our global overlord, Klaus Schwab,
Yes.
self-appointed global overlord,
There you go.
he's declared his war on meat. He wants to end the mass production of meat for the peasants, for the
Yeah,
peons,
exactly.
and the private ownership of cars. He announced here a couple of weeks ago that he has moved up, or moved down. Actually, I should say, his timetable for the outlaw of the private ownership of vehicles to like 2030 or 2035. I can't remember which one it was, but it was in the 30s there. He says that the world will be free of privately owned vehicles. It'll be mass
Crazy.
transportation. Of course, he'll still have his private jets and limousines and all those things, but the rest of us, I guess, we're supposed to be walking or riding the bus.
Well, right. The 15-minute cities, right? That's the new
That well,
thing.
yeah, the line that thing they're building in Saudi Arabia, the
Yeah.
line that
Crazy.
city there.
I shared that.
You know,
Yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, it's
Um,
anybody who denies that there is an organized and planned operation underway is walking around with their eyes closed.
I
Because
don't know how people
possible.
don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you and me are the conspiracy nuts, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we're viewed by the world, I think. And it's just, and people like us, it's crazy, because it's like, how do you not see it? Like, look at what's going on.
Yeah.
That was, I started doing rabbits for meat, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to be eating bugs. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
No,
that's
no,
kind of
yeah,
my
not me
plan.
either.
I'm like, I need a sustainable meat source, and I'm
Yep.
not really ready to take on cows and everything. I got about 35 chickens and a ton of rabbits, but
There you
and
go.
and big gardens. But
Yeah.
it really is that fear of, you see crazy places like California and stuff. And I hate to say it, being from New York, I know that, California starts it, New York follows soon after,
Hmm.
and then it spreads throughout the country, and it happens over and over
Yeah.
again. And I don't know how everyone doesn't kind of wake up to that. That agenda just keeps getting pushed
Yeah.
further and further. And you need to start figuring out how to take care of your family. And That's why I do this. Is people need to figure out how to take care of their family. And the more you don't need anything from outside your house, your property, whatever,
Yep.
the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely. And food, food production in particular is one of the biggest things to tackle, because you've got to eat every day, so food and
Yeah.
water, water being even more important than food in most cases, but you've got to eat food every day. And as we know, food has been used as a weapon for time immemorial,
Yeah.
kill that. You look at Ukraine, what Stalin did there. We can look into Africa and all the different famines that they've had. Look at Venezuela right now. You don't have to look far. China, you don't have to look
China
far to
every
see
day. Yeah. No,
where
exactly.
food is used as a weapon. There was a time in China where the citizens were not allowed to consume meat. Now, this was, back in history, long ago, hundreds and hundreds of years. But the reason the Chinese did that was to ensure that the population was too weak to resist.
Yeah.
Because protein is what builds muscle. Protein is what makes you stronger,
And keeps you
deny
mentally strong, right? I mean,
well,
that's
and your brain as
definitely a
well
thing,
too.
right?
And so you deny that to your population, and it keeps them weaker, inherently weaker. So let's think about, why are they wanting us to not have meat? Why are they not wanting us to do this? But they say they want us to eat the bugs, but humans aren't designed to live on a diet of insects. We're not.
Right.
There's stuff there we can't digest, and things like that. So we're not designed to live on that diet. But that's what they want us to do, and they're already surreptitiously putting it into products. So if you start reading the ingredients and things, some of those long names that are in there, Google them when you're in the grocery store. Look them up. You're going to find out there's cricket meal in a lot of stuff.
Right.
It's showing up already.
Yeah.
So they're slow rolling it, like they always do, slow rolling it, so that one day they're going to come out and say, "Well, this stuff's
already
been
been
in your
doing it."
products for years. If you eat this, you've been eating bugs, and if you eat that, you've been it's no problem."
Yep.
And people are conditioned to be like, "Oh, okay, the psychology of humans is amazing to me, especially when it's mass psychology, which is what we're living under. People suck, in my opinion, on the whole.
Kind of what it comes down to. That's the thing. That's
dumb, stupid, dangerous animals. Humans, dumb, stupid, dangerous animals. So
that's fair. And we've let the education and everything, where the kids have no idea what's going on and whatever. And we live in a world where parents are seen as the enemy, considered dumb and naive. Well, they're not tolerant. They don't know. They're so
tolerant.
They don't understand how the world works. Yeah.
Yeah. In schools, it's no longer education; it's indoctrination. Everywhere you look, that's what it is. And we've got this advance in AI, and there's an AI tool now that every AI uses. I just forgot the name of it. Give me a minute. I might think of it, but it looks for the racism, in everything. And in the mission statement for the company that created this tool for AI, they clearly state that they don't take into account anything that has to do with the oppressor, white people. Says it, white. So nothing can be said as a pejorative or a racist statement towards white people in the world of AI. There was one I saw this morning on Twitter. Somebody asked an AI graphics generator to generate a picture showing socialism versus democracy. The picture that came up looked like something out of Soviet Russia or China, green fields, leafy, everybody's happy, bright sunshine, capitalism. Much like our president enjoys his red backgrounds when he gives talks, red backgrounds look like kind of flames in the back, and then just throngs of people lined up, like either waiting to go to work or waiting to collect their
ready
whatever.
to go into the factory with big smokestacks coming out. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, democracy. It was socialism versus democracy, not capitalism.
Okay.
But democracy was this hellscape looking thing, and socialism was utopia by AI. So why did AI do that? Because humans programmed the AI and told it this is what's good and this is what's bad.
AI is so biased. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, I was early into checking it all out and seeing, I'm into that whole world of whatever. I don't know. You mentioned you did the industrial electrician thing.
Oh yeah.
Where I work, I'm basically like a firefighter kind of thing where,
Yep.
I just get calls and jump. So I
Yep.
might have a night where I sit at my desk for 4 or 5 hours, and I have nights where I don't see my desk,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's
Yep.
like, go handle all the crises right now,
Yep.
or hey, everything's just working and nobody's calling. So I have a lot of time to check out YouTube or whatever, that's where I dig up all the content for the podcast and whatever, and
Yeah.
have time to put together graphics and Lord knows what. So I'm always like, oh, AI, all this,
Mhm.
check it out. And I'm aware of the dangers. And it's funny because I'm the exact opposite. Like I'm nonstop with it at work. And then the minute I get out, I don't even carry a cell phone around with me. I always get the, oh, we called you, or the wife,
Yeah.
I called you, I texted you. I'm like, I have no idea.
Yep.
If I carry an iPhone with me, it's so I can listen to music,
Yeah.
well, while I'm out somewhere, I might have headphones with whatever.
Yep.
But that's, I don't know, I get off track. But
Yeah, you're good, man.
yeah, that's the world, and I mean, it's hard to get away from it all, but it so is shaping how we view things and how we see the world. And it is another thing conditioning us,
Oh yeah.
and the fact that it's, showing us the same things. I mean, even, I do tons of research on YouTube. Obviously, if you pull up my YouTube channel, even compared to yours or my wife's or anybody else, we see a totally different world
Mhm.
because those algorithms have, shaped what they're going to show us.
Yep.
And, it does add to what you're looking for, where if you're looking for things that makes you hate and angry, you're going to see things that make you hate and angry. And the same thing, if you're looking at puppy dogs in love, I think,
Yeah.
you're going to find puppy dogs in love,
But they're also, I've been watching YouTube for a very long time, and so like one of the things in particular that I tracked was the entire Ukraine deal back to 2008,
Mhm.
from prior to the Maidan experience all the way through to present day. And a lot of those videos that I used to watch about what was going on over there are gone now. YouTube
Yeah.
scrubbed them, and they're scrubbing so much stuff and
Yes, they really
controlling
are.
the narrative of what you can see. So that, and when you throw AI into this, it's hard to determine. And it gets harder every day to determine what is reality. So, did
Yeah,
you hear about
all
the
day.
explosion in that hotel in Houston, like yesterday afternoon? I guess it was.
Nothing. I don't watch news
Yeah,
much, but
it was a big explosion, blew all the windows and everything out of this big hotel in Houston. And on Twitter earlier, it was the ATF came out and said, "Oh, this was a gas leak explosion." And I'm like, "Well, all right, the ATF said that, but was it? We live in a time right now where you have to question literally everything you hear. We know our
100%.
government lies to us. You can watch the press secretary stand up there and lie to your face, just straight face. You
Yes.
know they're lying to you. So maybe it was a gas leak explosion that did that, or maybe it wasn't. But they're telling us
Right.
that. So it's so the truth has now become nearly impossible to discover unless you're there to witness it with your own eyes, because you can't believe what you read.
100%.
You can't believe what you
You
hear.
can't believe video.
And with
Nope.
AI, we can no longer
Can't
believe
believe
what we
video.
see. So,
Exactly.
and that's all part of this. It's the dumbing down of the populace they're controlling the information narrative. It's essentially a psyop. You'll hear what we want you to hear. You remember, you'll own
Yeah.
nothing. You'll eat the bugs. You'll be happy.
Yep.
And that's where they're trying to hurt us to. And
Yeah.
I don't really know why. I don't get the why to it, unless it's just this, or who even. I'm not even sure who. I know the Klaus Schwabs of the world are involved in that, obviously, because he publicly states it.
I think it has to come down to, they just want you to be, servants.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, we want you to make the food. We want you to make our nice things.
Yep.
And, however you do that, you can have your little life and pretend you're happy in your own thing, but you're still creating what we want, but we don't want you any kind of beyond that, any kind of rising up intelligence.
Well,
I think that's what it comes down to.
Not only that, but yeah, you're going to make for us the things we want, but we're not going to allow you to own those things. You're not going to be allowed to possess those things. And we're going to tell you what you can and cannot have, what you can and cannot eat, where you can and cannot live. they're trying to close down public land in this country to human access, like
Yeah.
to shut it down so we cannot even walk in there into, like, that's
Yes.
absurd, And again, that's to force people into concentrations, which
Yeah.
violates one of the fundamental laws of nature, carrying capacity. Any
Yeah.
patch of dirt from 1 square foot to 1,000 square miles of dirt can only support X numbers of any given life form. So we violate the hell out of that rule all the time. And as long as this very intricate and fragile system that we've developed exists, we can live there. But as soon as it falls apart, we can't. So we're re-engineering human beings to the point that we can no longer exist in our natural environment, which is the forest, temporal forest. That's where we're designed to live. That's all the evolution, everything designed us to survive and thrive there. And now, if you take the average human and drop them into that environment unsupported, they're going to die in a matter of days, usually, because they can no longer exist in their own natural environment. They can only exist in this purely artificial environment that we've created. And I say artificial because we have to make it all. None of it occurs naturally. We have to produce it. So therefore, it is an artificial environment.
Right. Now it's crazy. Even going back, you were mentioning all the things I know on YouTube. I was talking to some buddies at work like 3 or 4 years ago, and they never heard of that idea of when Rumsfeld came out and said that, we lost all that money when he gave that speech. It was billions or trillion.
Oh, it was
$1 trillion.
$1 trillion.
Right before September 11th. And that's gone. You can't find that on YouTube. And it's funny, about 3 years ago, I looked for it. And I finally found like somebody had a video about a bunch of things, and it was like in there, and that's gone. And I'm like, there's nothing. You can't prove anything anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah. Did you ever see the graphic of what a physical stack of $1 trillion looks like? I forget the number of pallets it was, but it is enormous.
Mhm.
It's bigger than a house. So imagine that much cash physically moved into Afghanistan, and the Taliban is still finding it. I just saw a video a little while ago where they found brand new U.S. $100 bills, all wrapped in plastic, and it was tens of millions of dollars that they found somewhere, right? in a stash someplace, and it lined this room. They're just panning this room, and it's just millions of dollars that we left there with the billions of other,
why not, right?
Equipment and everything. Yeah, I mean, what's a little cash when we left all this hardware and ammo for these guys? They're not going to use it on us, so
Yeah, and that's even I mean, it goes back to the whole Iran, when we hated Iraq and we were buddies with Iran, way back. It's crazy. Like over and over again, we're funding whoever, dropping guns off wherever. You see the movies and stuff, and it's just a crazy world. But history is changing all the time. I don't know. I grew up as a big Ayn Rand fan. I love Atlas Shrugged, is that whole mindset, and it kind of disgusts me where I don't know. There's a big thing like towards the end of the book. They go to rescue the. I don't know. The guy gets captured and she goes to rescue her boyfriend there. Well, I guess John Galt they're going to get, but she's with the Hank Reardon guy, whatever. Bottom line is she goes in and they're trying to break in and there's security guy. And she's like, make a decision, decide you believe me or don't. And that's kind of like the key to like everything in my mind is if you can't, her big thing was if you don't make decisions, you don't have value. And the more thought you have, the more value you have, kind of thing. It's just that, and that free will going away. And I think, I always talk to the wife. I'm like, that's why I think you get your mass murder kind of thing in the schools or whatever, is people don't value human life, right? I mean, we can talk about religion being the cause of that, whatever. They don't see value. And I think a big part of that is you're all part of the collective. What you do as an individual is less important than what the group decides and what we want. If the group decides we're going to do this about the planet, if you're the outsider, you're the problem. You need to go away. And people see themselves as the problem. And I hate to say,
Well,
I mean,
no,
that's
they
the
don't.
mind we're
They don't see
creating.
themselves as the problem. They see others as the problem. And you're right.
That's right.
And it's not even. And when you say the group, it's not even the
The
majority.
collective.
It's
No,
not even the
no, I don't
majority.
think.
It's always the minority. So I don't know if you remember just recently, it made the media. It was talked about a lot. There's a guy being sentenced, and he jumped over the judge's, whatever the hell the judge sits behind. I don't go to court much, and attacked the judge.
Okay.
And so he was brought back into court, and the next time he's brought back in, he's wearing a muzzle and a mask. He's got shackles, manacles, or shackles and handcuffs, waist chain, all chained together, and his hands are in some kind of thing too, so he can't even use his hands.
Okay.
And just on Twitter, for example, all of the comments are about how disturbing it is to see a black man in chains. I don't care what he did. That's disturbing and that's wrong.
Right.
And what we're doing and what they've very successfully done is removing the consequences of people's actions from them. You know, you look at the smash and grabs or the mass lootings that happen where people will run into a
Right.
Macy's or a whatever or a Coach store and
Right.
grab everything and run out the door because there's no consequences to them. They know it. They know if they get caught, there's no bail anymore. They're going to arrest me. They're going to let me
Right.
go. Good luck catching me next time. I'm off to the races again. So
Right.
they're removing the consequences of people's actions. You're not allowed to defend your own property the way you should be able to, or in a lot of cases, even your life. There's a guy 2 months ago in New York City, shot a guy raping a woman on a subway platform with people standing around, and he shot him to stop him. He's catching 4 felonies and he's in jail.
Right.
You know, it's absurd. They're incentivizing the criminal and de-incentivizing the victims. So the criminal,
All day.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's
They get bolder, and
it's all part of it. It's they've got a solution. We don't know exactly what it looks like, but they've got a plan that they want to implement. They just have to get enough of the people begging for that solution, and they're going to go, "Oh, well, you guys wanted it, so we have this," and everybody's going to be like, "Yeah, give us that," not understanding what they're doing by surrendering liberty. And most people don't understand what liberty really is, but
Yeah.
it's sad watching people surrender their freedoms, surrender their rights, surrender their personal sovereignty is really
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I think like when I used to look at it 5-6 years ago, I used to look at it with, Germany was running crazy with everything, and and you had Night of Broken Glass, the whole thing.
Kristallnacht,
And it
yes.
yeah. So, but and they had, they had the
Mhm.
whole transgender thing, they had gay stuff going on, and there was just craziness, and people were running wild and whatever. And everybody was getting so where Hitler said, "Look, I'm going to come in and bring back normal.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the strong arm." And they were begging for, a
Yep.
strong arm to come and bring normalcy back. And
Exactly.
I kind of was worried when, Trump came out, because that's kind of what everybody was grabbing for.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Look, I'm just going to bring normal back, and I'll do things beyond what you would have considered okay for a government, because I'm going to give you back what you want."
Yep.
But I hate to say it, the more I see stuff unfold now, I think it's way more sinister than that. I think it's going to be very different than us just begging for a strong arm. I think they have a bigger plan, and I'm not even sure where it goes. But it could be that we're just begging for a strong, authority.
Well, go back to 9/11. All right. 9/11, what do we get? Patriot Act. And they've done nothing but reinforce that thing over the years.
Mhm.
No one's ever talked about striking
And both
it down.
sides keep saying how bad it is when they're not.
Yep.
Yeah,
We
when they're not doing it.
we created the DHS and how many
Mhm.
additional agencies underneath them now.
Right.
That's the Stasi. They're the state police, the DHS. That's
Right.
state police. It's 10th Amendment. You can just wad that up and throw it away. It doesn't really exist no more.
Right.
States' rights and all
Not
the
at all.
things.
Right.
Anything not specifically enumerated, in this document
Yeah.
remains the states retain. So that's out the window. And they did that through money. So they basically started bribing the states and then told them, "Oh, well, if you want to keep getting our money, you got to go by our rules, not your rules." So,
Right.
and money that's the ultimate, get for just about anybody. You throw enough money at them, they'll do whatever you want them to do. So that's what they do to states and at times individuals. You look at the COVID payments and all that stuff that went down. It's just I never got any of them. I never got COVID payments, but that was just me.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more and more though, it just builds up and we let it get worse and worse and we give up control and they take more and more and it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It wears you down. Now, tell me, so the great, you got the book out at number 12 we're at, right? 12?
Yep. Number 12.
Is
Yeah.
the new one?
Exploring Home.
Now,
Yep.
now, so where are we at? Where are we going? Or even if you want to
So-
kind of, yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're 12 books in, and essentially on timeline wise,
Yeah.
in that world, we're only about a year in.
Oh,
About a
wow.
year long is all it is. But we're at the phase now where we're slowly beginning the rebuilding phase. We're going to start putting this country back together, and as this series moves on, some of the things that we're going to see is the Constitution is going to come into play in a couple of the books in a big way, in that it's being rewritten. Now, that's not in the next book or nothing. I don't want to think that, but we're gonna see a return to sanity. Is what we're going to see. The Constitution is going to get amended to codify the language to be unambiguous, that nobody can argue against it. The Second Amendment is going to be rewritten. The First Amendment, all of it's going to be rewritten so as to be crystal clear. The 10th Amendment will be a big focus of what happens in rebuilding this nation. Our federal government is going to be dramatically reduced and back to what its original intent was meant to be. In the world that will be created in the series, the term career politician will be as offensive as the term pedophile was and still should be. So it's not going to be looked at as a career path anymore. It's going to be looked at as a hardship that people endure on behalf of their country. You don't get rich. Lots of things. Like when this gets done, lobbyists will no longer exist. You also, if you are elected to office in the country, you will not be able to go to work for any firm that does business with the federal government ever, if you run for office and are elected, because there's inherent conflicts of interest that any moron can understand. You look at, I didn't see Sotomayor's Supreme Court justice. I didn't see her current net worth, but when she was elected to the Supreme Court, she had a net worth of $750,000.
Okay.
And now she's worth millions. I know it's in
Right.
the millions. I just didn't see the exact figure, because they were contrasting that against Clarence Thomas, who does not have a lot of money, is not a rich man, and basically talking down on Clarence Thomas for not being able to manage his money, and talking up Sotomayor for knowing how to work the system and enrich yourself inside of it.
Right.
And we can talk about the Pelosi family and down the entire list of all of them. The California crime syndicate of the Pelosi's.
Right.
But that kind of thing is what's going to be looked back at, and the people that are going to be running the country as we come out of the other side of this are literally going to say, never again. Never again will this happen. The judicial codes are going to be realigned. The IRS will go away. Colonial title will return to the people of this country. So that's the big picture stuff. There's a lot of how we get there is the fun part, but I'm in my imagined world, I'm trying to reset the board to what things should be and were meant to be. So
Right. No, I like it. And I like, that's the thing I think nobody tackles, and nobody has time to tackle. I mean, it took you 12 books
yeah,
and we're still not even there. But
No.
that's always what people are wondering about, is how do you rebuild? How do you recover from that? I think maybe Patriots touched on it at the end, something where they had some kind of like thing going on there.
Yeah.
But exactly, that's definitely awesome. That we see something, some kind of, how do we recover? Because that's what I'm afraid of. You get all these like crazy militant types who are like, yeah, we overthrow the government. Well, what do you think you're going to get? Who's going to step in? And
Well,
how do you get there? That's the whole
Yeah, power abhors a vacuum. Anytime
Yeah,
there's a vacuum, power, somebody, some form of power will fill that void. So yeah, it's got to be
and
done right.
that's it.
And we
And
run
you
a
have to have
risk.
a plan. Yeah,
We right now, our country, we run a massive risk. So the pendulum is swinging left extremely and still moving, but I think it's starting to peter out its progress to the left, and it's going to start swinging the other way.
well,
The,
I'd like
the
that.
extreme far right is just as bad. We don't want that either.
Right.
So we've got to hope that we can slow the momentum on this swing to something closer resembling sanity. You know, a lot of people
Right.
want revenge on the left for all of the things they forced upon us.
Mhm.
We've got a fraction of a percent of the population that is essentially dictating how the rest of this country will live,
Right. Right.
and people are getting fed up. They're not fed up enough yet, but eventually enough of them will get fed up with it, and we're going to start that swing the other direction. And we got to be
Mhm.
careful and temper ourselves. And I know everybody wants revenge, and we've got to do, and there will be a lot of it. Vengeance will be served to a lot of folks, unfortunately, because we've gotten into an era now where you can no longer have civil discourse. It's you're
Right.
either
Not
with
not
us,
at all.
you're with us or against us. That's it. You're part of our solution or part of our problem. And there's no middle ground. And we've got to have middle ground. I've got to be able to agree with some of what you say, disagree with some of what you say, but also agree with some of what you say and disagree with some of it. And we can still live together. That's the
Right.
beauty of
That's
50 states in this country. The states were
yeah.
designed to be able
Well,
to pass
and
their own
not even
laws.
that. I mean, that's the beauty of being a human. And
Yeah.
it's so disgusting to me. I don't have to feel the same way about guns as you do, or
Yeah.
the same way about, whatever, but you can do your thing and I can do my thing. You can be a vegetarian. You can live whatever lifestyle. I could care, that's great. Do you.
Yep.
Just don't tell me,
Yep.
that's
Exactly.
let me do mine. And, I understand, people are like, well, if you have guns, you could hurt me. Well, yeah, let's make killing or hurting people illegal. We'll make those crimes.
Well,
I can get behind that, if
that,
unless
that,
it's
you
justified.
don't even
We
you don't even need a law for that. We forget that we are nothing more than another mammal that lives on this planet. We are another animal that lives on this planet. Big, dumb, dangerous ones, like I said earlier, but that's all we are. The laws of nature still apply. In nature, if you're attacked, you have to defend yourself. Because what is the cost here? Your life. That's the cost.
right,
Okay. If you aren't living your life properly, as far as knowing your food sources and where they are, how to find them, how to avoid the predators, where to build your den, how to live, where to find water, where to source the things you need to exist, you die. Simple. The same thing happens to people, and people have an inherent. Every animal not even has the instinct to self-defense. Humans
right,
want to legislate that with words out of existence and say, no, you can't defend yourself or
right.
your property. If a dog's got a
We do.
bone, that's his property. Go take it from him. If he's a domesticated dog, you're going to be able to get away with it. If it's a wild animal, you're not
Probably
going to get
not.
away with that.
Yeah, right, right.
So we've been overly domesticated, and like I was talking about earlier, we're de-evolving too into that. We can no longer
Definitely.
exist in our natural environment. So
100%.
self-defense is not a right. That's a natural law. That's just a fact. It exists. It
Right.
is, and there's no denying it.
Back to the Declaration of Independence. Yep.
Yes. So, and I think a lot of people forget that. They forget, since we live in this artificial world, that the natural world still exists, and those laws are absolute. There is no gray area, middle ground, or room for discussion in the laws of nature, because they are absolute. And
Yeah.
if more people would wake up and realize that and remember that, we would probably be better off. But
Yeah. No, that sounds right. I don't know. So, all right. So everybody's going to run out, buy your book, because they're going to download all of them on Audible.
Awesome.
Or
I love Audible.
wherever it is.
Yeah.
Right? Audible.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how does that return for you? If somebody buys all your books on Amazon, do you do better than you probably do, right? Than if they went to Audible
No.
and
actually,
did that and got all 12?
No,
I have no idea.
well, so it's kind of it's a little convoluted. So when I finally eventually literally caved into the pressure and self-published Going Home, The first
Uh-huh.
editions they're so bad. The editing was awful, and they're terrible. But they're in hardback, and they're still out there.
Okay.
I
Okay.
actually had a guy not long
Those
ago.
are the rare collector's items that
Those are
people
the
sell
rare
for
ones.
$2,000 and
No, I
$5,000.
don't have any of them. I wish I did. I used to have cases of those things. And gee, if I'd have had any idea, because I had a guy buy one out of Italy. He paid $4,000 for it.
Wow, it's
Shipped
crazy,
it to
huh?
me to sign, which I did, and I shipped
Nice.
it back to him.
And you wanted to keep it because
Well,
you're like, hey,
I have
needed
2
this.
of them. I
Okay.
still have 2. I have one original, and then I have one that has an unreleased cover on it that no one ever saw.
Oh.
So I do have those 2. But after self-publishing and releasing it, about 6 weeks later, Penguin Books called and made an offer on the book, which I turned down, much to their
All right.
dismay. But a couple of weeks later, they called back. They had found religion or something and made an offer that I couldn't say no to, and I took it. So
All right.
the first 5 books are with Penguin Books and all formats. And to people out there that a lot of people want to be writers. And like I said, when I first got into this,
Right.
I had no intention of being a writer. What I was looking to do, I was just killing time and having fun.
Right.
And everybody wants that traditional publisher to pick them up because they think
Right.
that's the benchmark of success. And yeah, there's quite a bit of money involved in it at times. But I make way more per sale on the books that I self-publish through Amazon per book than I do through Penguin. And then the self-published books, I had a deal with a publisher, an audiobook publisher, Podium Publishing, which is the premier audiobook publisher that there is. They made me an extremely generous offer that I took. So they're my biggest revenue source, actually, is Podium Audio.
Nice.
Not Penguin Books. They're trivial compared to what I make through audiobooks because so many people like them. And the reason is I ended up with a fantastic narrator who messes things up a lot. He says things wrong all the time. But the readers are so vested in him that they're running jokes.
You can't change.
They're running jokes
right?
now.
The
And
voice
stuff.
of your guys, right?
Yeah, and so and people just love it. They love the audiobooks, and the guy does a super good job narrating them with inflection and changing. Like the listeners know which character is talking just by the voice he's using. So,
no, definitely. I mean, I'm a big audiobook fan,
too.
and the narrator makes a huge difference.
And so that was like part of the deal was when I first self-published. I did a deal with Podium Publishing. They had the audio rights. When Penguin came along, they're like, we want the audio rights. You need to call Podium and get them to release it to us. And this was a lot of money on the table at this time. And so I called Podium and explained it to them. And they're like, look, we do not want to do this. They said, but we understand what this means for you. They're like, so we're going to do it. They didn't release it. They sold it to Penguin for $30,000, which I thought was great. I laughed my ass off. But the day that I terminated my relationship with Penguin. We were negotiating another contract. Things are great. But then the guy I was talking to used a turn of phrase that I really didn't appreciate. And as they say, negotiations broke down at that point, which ended up with me telling them that I was going to take another path. And contractually, I was done with them. I was free to walk away. And I did.
Right.
But I also immediately sat down on the steps because I stand on the front steps of my front porch of my house. And I sat down. I was like, oh, my God, what did I just do? There was a lot of zeros in these numbers.
I risked a big, payday.
I'm like, what did I just do? And about 2 hours later, Podium Publishing called me. And they're like, hey, man, we regret selling away the rights to your audiobooks. One of the biggest mistakes we ever made. They're like, if there's any way we can work together in the future, we'd love to. And I was like, funny, you should call today. Same day. So I know someone in Penguin dropped a dime to somebody. And they're like, we'll send you a contract right now. And I'm like, well, hold on. I said, we got to have the same narrator. I said, we can't change narrators in the middle of the series. And he goes, they're like, oh, that's not a problem. We'll get him. I'm like, man, I said, look, having dealt with Penguin and stuff, I understand contracts a lot better than I used to. And I know that if it's not in black and white, it didn't happen.
Right.
They're like,
all day.
All day. So they're like, well, we cannot negotiate a contract with him without a contract from you. So you have to sign this contract and we'll go get him. I said, all right. I said, do me this then. I said, put a 72-hour sunset clause in there that says that you have to acquire him within 72 hours. And if you do not, our contract is void. And they're like, yeah, no problem. I was like, wow, that was easy. So by the time I walked in and sat down at my desk, the email was there. I printed it, signed it, emailed it back to them. They called me at 10 a.m. the next day and said, he's in. I was like, wow. And so
Yeah.
I got lucky. It's the whole process of me becoming published and all of it was like being struck by lightning. You know, a lot of people ask me for advice. I'm like, don't look at me for advice. I said,
Right.
what
I'm a
happened to me
fluke,
was,
right?
yeah, even Amazon, you know, they called me one day and they're like, hey, we're with Amazon. You know, we'd like to ask you some questions and stuff. And I was like, all right, you know, go for it. So they started asking me questions about publishing and things like that. And when I got done, the girl, it was so funny. She goes, oh, you're one of those. And I was like, what, you know? And she's like a unicorn. In publishing, we call you people like you a unicorn. She's like, you've had tremendous success in traditional publishing, and you're also extremely successful in self-publishing. She said, you're what every writer out there wants to be. And I was
Right.
like, well, you know, I said, it's all happened despite my best efforts
Nice.
at preventing it from happening. Everything that's happened is,
Well, that
you know, I just got lucky.
I love
But
it.
I will admit, I don't consider myself a good writer, but I do consider myself a very good storyteller. I can spin a yarn,
Nice.
and just getting that on paper and making it look good, and that's the hard part. But I got
Right.
some really good professionals now that work with me. I hired
Now,
a very expensive firm now to do my editing, and if guys that are out there in the self-published space knew what I spent to produce a book, it would blow their minds.
to look pretty, yeah. Nice.
Well, even for the editing and for all the stuff that goes into it, you know, I spend thousands to prepare a book for release. It's no small task or little process from these days for me to put a book out, because I'm trying to give the absolute best product I can. You know.
Yeah. All right.
It's a
Now,
big effort.
I do have to wrap up because some of us have to go to work to pay the bills.
Yeah, and
But
I got more of these
thing.
to do today. So yeah.
Right. Oh, fair enough. So last thing, you're looking at maybe a TV series.
Yeah.
Is
So
there any way we can help that go along or see
Man.
what's going on with that? How
well,
do we track that?
right now I've got a contract that's being hammered out. I've got to get this one little contract out of the way, and then we're kind of back to the races. The problem is, to get this done, we have to deal with Hollywood. And when we look at what Hollywood's producing, they do not want to produce this project. And I've taken numerous meetings already.
It's kind of anti-Hollywood.
It's extremely anti-Hollywood. And I've walked out of numerous meetings. I've been in the studios and sat down with studio presidents, the whole thing, and looked at them and said no. And to see the look of shock on their faces when I say no to them, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, that's not what people want to see." I said, nobody wants
Right.
your interpretation of the books. They just want the books. They don't. You
Right.
don't need to add all this woke diversity and all this stupid. I'm like, people are sick
Right.
of seeing that. So finding the right people to do it is the hardest thing in the world. And it may come down to where I'm going to have to say to hell with it. I'm going to do it myself. And I don't mean me film it. I'm going to
Right.
raise
A
the money,
producer or
and
whatever. Right.
I will be the executive producer. I will be the guy standing there saying yes or
Right.
no, and I'll sign the checks and I'll get it done.
And then sell it or don't. Right.
Well,
So
or
whoever.
I'll build a platform and I'll charge a subscription, and you can stream it and watch it there. So
That works, right? You've done it before with your books.
yeah,
So yeah.
and it's fully produced. I have a screenplay. I have the budgets. I
Nice.
have what we call the lookbook, pitch deck. I even have a sizzle reel. Like
Nice.
you know, we've got a
Nice.
complete package ready to go. Just got to find the right people. And so far, I've been unsuccessful in that effort. Just the way
All
it
right.
is, because I'm
So
not gonna
what's-
sell out. Is the thing.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Now, so where do we go to check out everything you're doing? What's the website?
Oh, yeah, angryamerican.com. You can hit that up. You can sign up for a newsletter there. There's going to be stuff there that when not yet, but it's coming. For what I'm doing is I'm putting together a small. I don't know if it's going to be like a pamphlet or a small book, but it's going to be a character guide. So it's going to have every single character that's ever been introduced into the story.
Nice.
You'll know what book, what chapter they showed up in, and get a little bit about them. So that's going to be a
detailed.
cool thing that's coming up in the website, that when you sign up for the newsletter, you're going to get that for free. But
Nice.
you can sign up for the newsletter, follow us there. We do Facebook Lives once a month. We do
Okay.
Patreon.
So you have a
Lives.
podcast? Is that right?
We have a podcast tomorrow,
Let me see here.
Wednesdays.
Good.
Yep, there we go.
That-
That's the podcast.
All right.
So Wednesdays we record a podcast. You can watch it live on YouTube, Twitter, and I think even Facebook while we're doing it. And then it goes out as a podcast as well. And I'm on all the socials in every capacity, you know, and under the Angry American or Angry American, depending on like
Angry American. Got
where
it.
we're
And then,
currently arguing over the name. Somebody else uses this name too, but I started before them, and I've trademarked.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I've trademarked it now. So, and I also have proof of first use. So this guy's going to have
Hey,
to change his hand.
I've always thought of you. So
Yeah,
when I think Angry American, this is where I'm at.
Yeah. So,
So fair enough.
yep. So yeah,
So
you can
we're-
buy the books on Amazon. Best place to get them, honestly.
Right.
You know, I may in the future move away from Amazon, but that'll be a discussion for a different time and a much bigger
Another day.
project. So yeah.
All right.
But
Well,
thanks
I
for having
really
me on, man.
appreciate having
Great
you.
little chat.
I
bro.
love the books, man. They're great. So with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to everybody next week.